What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Jobbers and Goons. And I know you guys have been big fans of the Goon series for a long time. Recently, we actually dropped our 100th video of that. And one of the best things about Goon moments and Goon series in general is you get to talk about some of the funniest and best moments in comic history. And fiction, honestly, because obviously I'll be branching out to other things. But regardless, that series has kind of led to this one, which I'll probably just call the Goon Run series. So basically, the best Goon-like stories, the best Goon-like series, I will be covering in my fashion of narration from start to finish because it's that wild of a story. And of course, the first one I want to start off with is the Spectre 1992 run. Now, obviously, I've covered some of it before. I've done videos on it in the past. Consider this the ultimate Goon remastering. Obviously, it's going to be a brand new version of that. I'm very excited for this, and make sure to smash the like button. If we could get this to 200 likes, that would be amazing. Now, the funny story, kind of before we dive in on Spectre, is that this discovery of this run for me came from because I was tired of people calling Spectre a bitch. I was like, there's no way he's that big of a bitch. I gotta find runs that shows him being a monster, because people were constantly saying he was a jobber, constantly gets mauled, all these things. I was like, we gotta change that. I gotta pull up and find some good shit, right? So I read Spectre 1992 by Jonathan Ostrander, and I'm telling you guys, if you have not read this run, read it, because it's a 10 out of 10. And if you want a version of it, hit up my Discord because I can hook you up. But anyways, without further ado, let's dive into this wild-ass Spectre 1992 Goon run. So, Spectre in this run is pretty much already showcased outright as a being of just wild proportions. Like, the power applied doesn't make sense in the terms of what we're dealing with. The reason I say that is we literally start off early with Spectre confronting some drug dealers. Yes, drug dealing is not the best profession in the world. I'm not trying to argue that. However, being reality warped into seeing pure evil, death, and hell is absolute chaos. Like, bro, this man saw drug deal. You guys thought Punisher was bad. Punisher just kills people. He showed them eternal hell, evil, and death for dealing drugs. That's crazy. We get early on signs that this Spectre is not the one to play with. Now, oftentimes and very early in this run, we're seeing a Spectre that in a lot of ways kind of is subjected to this endless horror, right? Because he's God's wrath and justice. That's what he is. But there's so much injustice in the world, galaxy, universe, the multiverse, that dealing with such levels of chaos, anarchy, bloodshed, bad shit is just crazy. Spectre's like, bro, this shit is wild. I just need to run the fade with everyone at once. If I could do that, we would be good. But of course, part of his bound and binding status is for him to be fighting his way for that. Like, he's got to find out the true meaning of being God's wrath and vengeance, as well as who he is and what it means for him to be Spectre. And that's where we kind of see Jim Corrigan brought into this. Now, I'm going to tell you guys right off rip. 92 Jim Corrigan, can't tell me shit, dog. He's the fucking GOAT. He's a former detective, obviously wrongfully killed, and this left him in turmoil as he's someone that has to constantly seek justice. So him being mixed with Spectre is an interesting pair, because obviously Spectre can turn into Jim Corrigan and he can walk around investigating shit and solving some of the evils and wrongdoings, right? We've seen crazy-ass sequences with Jim Corrigan where he's literally mind-hacking people even in his human state. We saw him getting people essentially to confess sins and shit they've done, and people, their homies would hear them saying this shit and they're like, yo, what the fuck are you talking about? Who are you talking to? And they're like, yo, I don't know, but that shit was freaky. I don't know why I just spilled the beans like that. And we see Corrigan's a problem with this Spectre amp as a detective, because he's gonna find out if you did that shit. Like, there's no doubt about it. He's gonna know. And we obviously see at this point, he's dealing with a murder. You're gonna see a lot of cases being dealt with throughout this run that makes it, like, exceptionally chaotic. Real shit, though, you don't want Spectre to be the cop investigating you. There's good cop, bad cop, Spectre cop. It's fucked, right? Like, he pulls up on a dude he suspects of killing a lady, because he's gonna straight up figure out what's going on, right? He's like, I need to know. So he grabs the husband of a murder victim, Judith, right? And he pulls up on him. Spectre wants to know if bro killed his wife, right? So instead of asking the hard questions or finding another way to interrogate, he shows him hell. He drags him to hell. He puts him in the hands of a demon that's like, yeah, I love to torment for eternity murderers. Is this another murderer? And that's when the guy's like, dude, I didn't kill my wife. Like, Jesus Christ, bro. Like, why am I in hell? I didn't kill my wife. Like, chill out. It's a prank. And Spectre was like, all right, I believe him. He's telling the truth. So he takes him back, right? and just drops him back in reality. Like, first of all, you just traumatize that man for the rest of his life. He fucking saw hell. He's going to turn into one of those pastors that goes on TV every fucking Thursday and talks about the time he went to hell, right? Like, you just did that. You changed that man forever. Just to investigate a murder because you're very impatient with the process. That's how Hood Spectre is in his run. Like, off rip, bro. He's a menace. And then we see something that's interesting with Spectre, right? Like, due to his job and role as God's wrath and vengeance, he kind of has to seek these trials and tribulations for himself on his own, which means in some ways God limits his sight. For example, when he's investigating this murder, he's not outright just shown everything, right? Like, he has to figure it out on his own. But Spectre, like I said, when he's on the case, he's not accepting L's, right? He's pulling up. So he goes to the gravesite. He's like, man, I gotta figure this shit out. And he meets her twin, Jacqueline, right? And he's like, yo, you look like Judith. I wanted answers. And she's like, nah, I'm her twin. You know, we had some shit going on and stuff. I'm here to grieve. He's like, okay, well, can you give me information on what's went down? Like, your relation to her. In fact, where were you when she was killed? All this shit, right? And she's like, oh, I'm grieving. I don't answer to strangers. Sorry. Like, leave me alone. Corrigan Spectre goes, yo, you dumb bitch. I don't take no for an answer when it comes to information. Run your brain, ho. And literally mind hacks her. And upon mind hacking her, he discovers that she murdered her own sister. And that's when Spectre pulls up on the bitch, right? He's like, yo, you're gonna do your own sister like that? Your twin? You're just gonna fold her? She's like, look, I was trying to make a play. It wasn't really supposed to work out like that. Just had to make some moves. Like, please stop. And Spectre's like, nah, bitch, you gotta burn. And at that point, she's like, yo, what even are you? And he goes, I'm the collective wrath. I'm the sum of everyone who never got justice. And I will get my justice. And he throws that bitch off a cliff after dropping bars. That's right. Don't get investigated by Spectre, because he's also probably going to murk you after he finds you guilty. It's terrible. We also see him show, like, some crazy shit to other people, right? Like, we saw him show one girl early on. Some wild shit. Like, she wanted people to be brought back, and she wanted to know who he was, right? And he goes, okay, I can bring your people back. You want them to live? I'll let them live. Because they had gotten cooked, right? They got folded. Everyone gets folded when Spectre runs out. He brings them back as rats. He's like, who they are as people will conform to their reality. Basically, who they are on the inside will conform to who they are. That will be their outer appearance. They all turned into rats, and she was horrified. And at that point, Spectre, like, flexes the cape, and he's like, yo, you wanted to know who I am? Cool. How about this? I can show you what made me. I can show you what led to this. How about that? Do you have the courage for that? Can you even see my origin story? And that's when we get a flashback of Jim Corrigan, right? This is a flashback of what spawned this version of the Spectre. It's very clear this is a specific version of the Spectre. Now, obviously, as I mentioned prior, Jim Corrigan was a character who was a well-renowned detective. He was very stuck in his ways in terms of his personal moral code, right? Like, he was going to do the right thing no matter what. And this could be problematic when dealing with crooked cops and dealing with mobsters, dealing with all this. He did well for a long time, but eventually he got caught slipping. And in getting caught slipping, he got killed. Ended up wrongfully murdered. And this injustice, being killed before he could bring his version of justice to the world to seek right for the wrongs done, this spawned the Spectre. This moment, this death, it spawned the new version of Spectre. This was Jim Corrigan bound Spectre and his origin story in terms of how the two beings merged. We see later on that he can actually show you limbo straight up. Like, first of all, this version of Spectre has so many speed feats, it's crazy. But he can take you to limbo and outright show you everything. And what's kind of crazy in this moment, right, is we see the kind of contract that's thrown to Jim Corrigan Spectre. We see what he's confronted with, his reality behind this binding. You see, Spectre is the spirit of God's vengeance and wrath and justice. All the wrongdoings, all the evil. It must be confronted and comprehended. Those are the words used. You must confront evil and comprehend it. Now, here's the problem, and it was kind of eloquently put by this particular moment. When straight up, Spectre said, you must confront evil and not only comprehend it, but then all evil, all wrongdoings, all injustices, everything. It's got to be brought to an end. It's got to be comprehended. You yourself, all these things, it must be comprehended. You must know yourself. You must get your own vengeance. All these things must be done, and it's an impossible task. And that's kind of a crazy thing to see to be dealt with, like, hey, you're given this task of clearing the streets, but just know the streets are endless. So it's an impossible task. But Spectre's kind of got to deal with that shit anyway. He's like, all right, whatever, bitch. I'm going to clutch the W anyway. You give me an impossible task, I'm going to do the impossible. I'm Big Jim Corrigan. So then we see Spectre needed, someone to kind of get information from. And it was not their time to die, right? Like, it was injustice for them to be boloed. So he pulls up. Like I said, he sees this girl going to heaven. And he's like, it's not her time. Snags her. It manages to literally fly from Earth to the brink of heaven and stop her. Pretty much instantly. It's stupid. And he brings her back. And even though spirits protest, like, oh, you could have let her go to heaven. She could have had rest. It still wasn't her time. I'm sorry. Spectre's not here to be your friend. He's here to do his job, bro. Smash the like button if you respect Spectre for doing his job. For getting in his bag, because that's what he's supposed to do. We then see a point in his character that's like really well defined within a moment. And this moment came with Spectre confronting a woman, right? And he starts to read her mind and soul. He's like, what did this bitch do? Because she's carrying crazy guilt. Like, the amount of guilt this bitch felt was crazy. And he saw, upon reading her, multiple dead bodies. Like, multiple dead bodies surrounding her. At that point, he's like, oh my god. I might be dealing with a fucking psychopath. Like, this bitch has killed hella men. And he's like, yo, why do you have so many bodies to your name? And she's like, oh, well, I once had a partner that gave me AIDS, and they didn't tell me they had AIDS. So then I went on to sleep with a bunch of people, and they ended up getting AIDS and got folded. And it's my fault. So I killed them. So punish me. And that's when Spectre realizes, like, yo, I don't punish people because they feel guilty. I punish and confront evil, not guilt. Those are two defined things. And it was dope to see Spectre be like, yeah, nah. I know you feel bad, but you weren't being evil. Bad shit just, like, shit happens, dog. Shit happens. That's what happened. Is it terrible? Absolutely. But, again, I confront evil, not what you got going on. And that, with that story and that issue, it's clearly hammered out for the Spectre. He's got one job to do. Now, if you guys are a fan of massive boss battles, which you'll see a lot of them in this fucking Goon Runs episode with Spectre 92, smash the like button, because we have stumbled upon our first big boss battle. That's right. The boy Spectre is pulling up on the Lord of Lies within hell. Shit's about to go down. So Big Spectre is looking for the soul of Eddie, right? Like, he wants Eddie's soul back. He needs to talk to the boy, right? And he pulls up to this level of hell. Shathan, the Lord of Lies, sitting on his throne. He's like, yo, Spectre, I ain't seen your bitch ass in a minute. And Spectre was like, what up, ho? You see immediately that Shathan has beef with bare minimum the Spectre itself, like, as a concept. He's like, we fought before, and because of that shit, like, I've only been able to come back in this type of form. And he's like, I can't stand you. Why are you even here? And Spectre goes, yo, I need the soul of Eddie. Do you have him? And he says, yeah, but he's a little bit busy. We see him being tortured, right? And that's when shit starts to escalate. That's the only way to describe it. Spectre's like, look, I need the soul, and there's no more words to really be said about this shit, right? Just give me the soul. And bro's talking shit to him. So he just uppercuts him. Just straight up. He's like, uppercuts him in his own hood. It was wild. And Shathan's like, yo, you aren't God, Spectre. Like, I know you work for God. I know he invokes power for you and such, but you aren't God himself. You don't have domain over hell. So you being here puts you on my turn. And he's like, you've inflicted so much shit on people throughout time just to punish them. Why don't I show you what that looks like? And he proceeds to immediately, like, start subjecting Spectre to essentially every torture and punishment Spectre has ever given out to anyone. And that's when we see Shathan chain him and start to give his villain speech. He's like, yo, you pulled up on me before. Sure, you got hands, but you've also been chained before. You've been bound before. And now here you are, bound again. Your power doesn't extend to here. You lost. I'm the GOAT. Like, thanks for playing, Spectre. And Spectre just looks at him and goes, yo, real shit. I'm the wrath of all who were ever wrong. Those who never got to see justice. And for that, you can't beat me. For that will ever be present. Especially in hell. There's mad people in hell that dealt with wrongdoings and horrible shit just as much as anyone else. That needed justice just as much as anyone else. And that goes over a lot of people's heads. Because they assume, you know, people that need justice will be in heaven. But no. Bad shit can happen to anyone. And that's real. And Spectre acknowledges that. And he breaks out of the chains. He just shatters the chains. And starts shooting at Shathan. He's like, where's the soul, bro? Like, give me the soul before this shit really gets risky. Before I really put you on a t-shirt. And we see he was tanking all the prior punishments he's ever dished out. And he starts punching through Shathan. He's like, yo, you want to subject me to all that? Cool, let me subject you to your own shit. Take your own hellfire. And we see when he's tearing apart Shathan, just absolutely destroying him, Shathan sees Spectre smiling. He's laughing, smiling, enjoying this. This is someone who is not shy about handing out ass whoopings. It's crazy to see. We then see Shathan speculate that Spectre may very well be Lucifer. It was kind of weird. Like, he went on this rant about there was a fallen prince of God, who repented for the rebellion, and as a result, he walks bound to Earth to do all this crazy shit, and he was asking Spectre if that's him, right? And that kind of seems like a Lucifer story. It's the fallen prince who repented for his rebellion. That sounds like the demon or Hell Lord Lucifer. So I thought that was weird. And Spectre doesn't even really confirm it. He just goes, I am what I am. And you know what you are? An L magnet. Every time you run into me, bitch. And he walks away to get the soul. That man is just an absolute beast. We then see that Spectre has kind of sharpened the way he confronts people doing hood rat shit, right? He pulls up on gangbangers with weapons and guns and whatnot, and he goes, yo, you guys think you terrorize the streets? You play with these toys like children. He's pissed at this point, and he's like, you think you're men because of this shit? I'll show you true nature of evil. I'll show you hell itself. Let's see how hood you are when I do that. Dude, like I said, seeing him confront people like a cop and just execute his own justice is terrifying. Spectre's a menace on the street. And then we see Spectre eventually get confronted by a pretty famous DC character on the magic side of the community. That being Madame Xanadu. She pulls up and she's basically confronting Spectre for the shit he doesn't do, right? She's like, yo, you have all this power. You're basically an extension of the power of God. But you won't, save people of illnesses. You won't cure them of this and that. And he goes, okay, but why would it stop with her? Why would I only cure her? And she goes, why don't you just cure everyone? Why don't you just be a good person and do that shit? Don't you work with God? Why aren't you being cool? And he's like, then where does it stop? Does it stop at death? You want me to stop death too? And she's like, why not? You can see she's pissed at this point. She's literally glowing. And she's like, you could fix death. You have all that power and you won't. And he just looks at her and he says, I don't fight death. I don't confront death. I fight and confront evil. Death is not evil. That's kind of a profound thing to many people. But that is what it is, And we see Madame Xanadu at this point is absolutely wilding out. She is trying to get the power of Spectre, right? Because she wants to be able to do the shit that, Spectre should be doing, right? At least in her opinion. And so she gets the power, and at that point, Corrigan straight up says, like the Spectre power with her could warp all of creation. That's how OD wielding the power of the Spectre could potentially be in DC. We see when Madame tries to possess this power and this burden that Corrigan has to carry, it's overwhelming in nature. She's like, dude, what the hell? Like, all this stuff going on in her mind, perception of the world, what she has to confront, what she has to do. It's completely different than what she expected. And because of this, we see her kind of relent, right? She's like, okay, you know what? Damn that, I'm giving the power back to Jim. She gives it to Jim and she's like, yo, Jim, real shit. I respect the hell out of you because I don't know how, you are able to deal with what you do. I don't know how you have been able to get past all this wild shit that you must confront as a Spectre. I can never have that power. I can never have that job. I can never have that purpose. You know what? Keep all that shit. I take back what I said. You got it, dog. And she just gives it back. He's like, alright, yeah, I understand why you're doing it. When we see, at that point, Spectre is engaging in another Goon boss battle. Again, guys, smash the like button if you haven't already. If you enjoy these boss battles, because Spectre, one of the things with him, wherever he's hanging out, he's gonna detect wild shit, right? Like, detectives can be discussing evidence, going through evidence, all that. He calls that shit slow. He's like, I don't have to operate like that. I'm the Spectre. I can follow the scent of blood, and this will lead me where I have to go. But unfortunately, our boy Spectre is led into a trap, right? We see him get trapped by Asmodeus. Asmodeus clearly being another, like, hellish being where even angels themselves fear his power. He's that stupidly broken. And Asmodeus is like, yo, aren't you used to this shit? Like, I've caught you before. And that's when Spectre realizes who it is. Now, obviously, Spectre's not going to just sit there in a trap while you're talking crazy. You know, you're going to piss him off. So he escapes, right? He escapes. But unfortunately, due to the magic and the way Asmodeus is operating, Spectre in that moment can't really hurt him, right? And so Asmodeus is talking crazy. He's like, yo, you can't even hurt me right now. And you want me to be afraid of you? And Spectre's like, bro, I don't care. But that body you have right there is only flesh and blood, so I can get your dumb ass out of here at least for the time being. And this is funny because this actually segues into another boss battle before we return for the match between Asmodeus and Spectre. You see, Spectre had a soul reach to heaven, right? Like this, he needed to talk to a soul. He needed a soul. And this soul has already went past the gates of heaven. But Spectre, you know, he's focused. He's like, bro, I'm getting to the bag. I'm getting that soul. So he tries to access heaven. He gets stopped by Michael, who at that point is fully armed. And Michael is like, yo, Spectre, you are the, like, wrath of God, the justice of God. You have a purpose. You know you're not meant for heaven or hell. You can't come past the gates. You haven't fulfilled your purpose yet. You have to do that to make it through the gates, right? But you haven't done that. So what are you doing? And Spectre tells him, he's like, real shit, bro. I have a soul I'm trying to save, and you're in my way. Like, we don't have to do this. I'm just trying to go in there and get him. I'm not trying to stay in heaven. And he says, nah, I can't let you through. And if you try anymore, I'm going to have to fight you. And you know you don't want to fight me, bro. I'm Michael. I'm the fucking Michael Demier. You don't want to fight me. He's like, you know that, right? And Spectre looks at him. He's like, bro, we can rumble if we got to. And that's when we see the boy Spectre start throwing hands with Michael. That's right. Jim Corrigan Spectre pulled up on Michael and started swapping hands in front of the gates of heaven. And although he got knocked out, although he didn't win and he got cast back to Earth, Michael straight up admitted, yo, real shit, Spectre, you gave me a good ass fight. Like, that was a brawl. So then we see Spectre take the L. He holds that. He's a man. And he's still a goon for pulling up and even hurting Michael. That's crazy. And he gets sent back down to Earth. And that's when we see Asmodeus had become whole again, right? Like, he's pulled up and he is like, yo, real shit, I got my swag back. I got my drip back. Like, you've been talking crazy, Spectre. I've been talking crazy. Why don't we run the ones? Like, you think you sweet. I think I'm the man. We can get into it. We can really do that. And that's when Spectre says, yo, real shit, you know I'm not running from a fight. So they begin to fight across different levels of existence, right? At one point, and shout out to everyone that loves power scaling, if you're watching this video, because it's a crazy moment, he begins slamming dreams and possibilities themselves, like on a conceptual levels, into Asmodeus. Like, that's what they were hitting each other with. These weren't planets. These were literally dreams and possibilities. That's how broken these characters are and what level they've reached at this point in time. As you guys know, and if you can't tell by now, Spectre's a wizard in the pocket, son. Don't get in there. You're going to get blended like a bitch. And he starts folding Asmodeus. He starts putting the absolute hands on him. And he's like, yo, real shit, we can do this. And he really fucked up, Asmodeus did, because he had Spectre bound, and then he made Spectre pretty much realize he had been distracted this whole time. So he begins to let loose and starts beating the shit out of Asmodeus, just tearing him apart and letting him know he is a bum. Like, it was a wild battle. Now, buckle in because the story's about to get crazy. First of all, we had a random encounter where Spectre got into a brawl with a being that he had, like, no idea how he was still standing. He did eventually put the paws on him, but he was like, yo, what the hell? Like, how are you standing? And he was like, I'm the student of the Kabbalah. I literally use the power from which you were created from. And you're like, oh shit, Spectre might get dropped, bro. Like, he's facing a power of literally God. Psych beat the fuck out of that boy. And he was like, yeah, shut your mouth. I'm the GOAT. And just walked away. Just cleaned the dude who had the power of God in his hands. He just couldn't beat Spectre. Spectre was just too real for that shit. And that's when we get a terrifying story from Phantom Stranger, as we're about to get into another boss battle. Smash the like button if you haven't already for, again, another boss battle in this amazing Goon story. Now, at this point, Spectre has been caught up in an ancient beef. You see, Phantom Stranger explains to Madame Zanadu and a hit team that he's gathered that at a point in time, he had tried to kill Eclipso. Eclipso being one of the original Spectres, and a being who eventually pretty much became evil, right? He's stupidly powerful. And Eclipso was coming back. Essentially, Phantom Stranger failed to pull it off, and at this point, he's like, yeah, we can't even really take Spectre or him. They would have to be heavily weakened. Hopefully, we can get them to beef so this can stop. But of course, Eclipso has pulled up on Spectre, and he's kind of appealed to that human side of him that realizes humanity's fucked. Like, he's like, bro, everything's bad. Creation's crazy. We should just wipe creation and remake it how we want to make it good. And he's kind of mind-hacked Spectre at this point. Like, Eclipso is taking back Spectre. And he's like, we're going to move as one. And he kind of kicks Gorgon out at that point. And he's like, we're going to make these moves. And that's where we see this feral / Eclipso controlled Spectre start going crazy. Phantom Stranger's hit team steps in. This would, of course, include the likes of Etrigan. Now, Etrigan started rapping at Spectre. Spectre raps back at him and slaps the shit out of him. I was like, oh my god. Spectre's wildin'. And then you see Etrigan going all out, ripping off his face, and Spectre just thought it was slightly annoying, maybe a little bit of an inconvenience. Dr. Fate, all these characters, Phantom Stranger, they're not really doing shit to him. And you know who they need to clutch the W is the boy Jim Corrigan. He fights back and takes back Spectre. And he's like, Eclipso, I get it. You feel like everyone did you dirty. It turned you horrible. It turned you into a super gremlin. But that's not my problem. So burn to ash, bitch. And he folds Eclipso, throws him out, literally burns him to ash. He's like, yeah, he might come back, but he's gone for now. And that's when we see this, pan over to a pretty interesting segue from Michael, the Archangel, that talks about Spectre. He's like, the journey of Spectre, in particular, this Spectre is interesting because he can't see the fate. He hasn't been made privy to the fate of Spectre. Spectre is the only one that will ever know his fate. His fate is beyond even Michael the Archangel's view. That's insane. But he's like, yeah, this story's crazy because I can't even see how his story ends. Now, again, we see Spectre get into a boss battle. This one's kind of crazy because we see Spectre at one point had fought Hitler, and Hitler had stabbed him with the Spear of Destiny. This is essentially the telling what the Spear of Destiny can do. And it had even the potential to, like, kill Spectre at one point. It had boloed him. That's how broken it is. However, we know this Spectre, Corgan Spectre, kind of scales above that, right? And we also get kind of confirmation that he's fought in Limbo before, which is pretty dope. And we see a mind-hacked Superman who is using the Spear of Destiny, right? We see him get confronted by Spectre. Spectre's like, yeah, you're Superman. You need to cut the shit out. I know you got a lot going on. I know you're getting boloed and whatnot, but I need you to cut this shit. And it's revealed, obviously, like, the Spear of Destiny is what... It's basically got a part of it that was dipped in the blood of Jesus. That's why it's so damn strong. Spectre still stood up to this and survived it. I'm telling y'all, Jim Corrigan Spectre, 92 Ostrander run, fucking him. Him, McGee. Timothy McGee, bro. That's who he is. That he is just crazy. And we see, again, confirmation that the Spectre itself, is, because we're kind of getting like a history lesson on the Spectre. We see he's literally one of the instruments of God, one of God's first creations, right, ever, right, as a concept. And it took form as a Spectre. And we can see that Spectre is bounded because of Jesus. Essentially, the death of Jesus, how Jesus was bound and crucified, that led to Spectre. Spectre's the wrath, the justice for the greatest injustice in mankind's history, at least from their point of view, right? Which would be Jesus. Jesus and how he was crucified. So that's why Spectre is the way he is, and why the Godhead really bounded him. And we see in a history lesson, and I thought this was dope, that we get confirmation Jim Corrigan Spectre is really him. Why do we say that? Because we see clearly, as demonstrated by the story told by Michael, Spectre had ran down on Michael before. I mean, we knew that, but we saw the fight before appeared to be a lot easier for Michael than when he fought Spectre with Jim Corrigan. So that's just like a dope bit of scaling. And we see just more eternal struggles for a pimp, right? Like Spectre's like, yo, man, I have the power to destroy free will. Like, do you guys know how annoying it is to exist here? He's like, I'm on this plane of existence dealing with you guys constantly doing bullshit. And I have the power to destroy free will, but I can't. Like, I gotta let you guys do bullshit. So it's a never-ending just fest of ridiculousness that I'm dealing with. Which is facts. Like, he's constantly being put through bullshit because of human nature. And he can destroy it, but he's not allowed to. It's probably the most annoying thing he could deal with. We didn't see him get into another brief battle. Brief boss battle, if you want to call it that, as he fights Belial, right? And he pulls up on Belial. Belial thinks he's him, right? And he has to inform him. He's like, I think you're trash. He's like, I don't even think your tears, Hell Lord, is like worthy of my time. Get the fuck out of my face. And he beat the shit out of him. He absolutely thrashed Belial. So that was definitely an L for Big B, who likes to talk crazy to Phantom Stranger. But it's a different tune when my boy Spectre's in his hood. And, of course, Spectre, being the most active in the multiversal hood, gets confronted by Asmodeus. Again, like, we see Asmodeus had originally fought like a four-armed Spectre. Like, this battle dates all the way back. He had fought like Shiva Spectre. It's crazy how long they have beef. We saw in a first fight that, like, Asmodeus kind of won. He hit him with this weird psychic amnesia, but then at the same time, Spectre immediately bounced back. He was like, fuck the rap shit, I'm clutching the W. Spectre slapped the shit out of him in the second fight. And at this point, man, and you guys gotta understand this, right? Spectre's been going through some real shit. And he's constantly dealing with these Hell Lords and denizens of hell. He's like, fuck that. This is really fuck the rap shit moment. Smash the like button if you love those moments. He's like, bro, I'm constantly dealing with this bullshit from hell. I'm pulling up at this point. I'm tired of it. And he's gonna raid hell. And that's when we see the flaming sword of Michael crash into the ground. He's like, yo, Spectre, real shit. I get where you're coming from. Like, you want to run down on hell and you want to raid hell. And he's like, yeah, I do. I'll do that shit myself. Like, I'll clear that bitch out. Like, he's confident he can air out hell, right? And I'm sorry, he's just such a goon. And Michael goes, yo, I get it, bro. Like, you're on some real shit right now. But I can't let you do that. Hell has its function. You have your function. And your function is not to raid hell. So fall back. And Spectre does. But it was wild to see that he was willing to raid hell. And you can tell why, because Asmodeus is like down there, just hanging out, you know, and he's tired of the beat. And that's when we see him spit out blood that was both physical and mystic across the cosmos. And he's like, man, like, Asmodeus keeps trying to do all this bullshit to me. I'm tired of it. We gotta pull up. And of course, he pulls up on the boy Asmodeus. But of course, as with pretty much all their fights, Asmodeus prepped, right? He has to prep to deal with the boy Spectre. He preps the fuck out of the battle. He takes his power by using bullets made of literally Spectre's own despair. He's basically using his own power against him. And that's when we see Madam pull up, right? Madam's like, yo, I can't see Spectre get jumped with prep. Like, this shit's corny. So she pulls up and she starts fighting Asmodeus. She's like, you're on some bullshit. That's my dog. Like, Spectre's actually a good dude. Gorgon Spectre's real. And she kind of allows Spectre to regain faith in himself. Because Asmodeus was basically slamming him with a bunch of shit. Trying to waver Gorgon's faith. At least in his ability to function as Spectre. And that's when we see the fight escalate, right? The fight goes to hell. Asmodeus needs all the advantages in this fight with Spectre, right? He's like, yeah, fuck that, we're going to hell. Madam goes there too. And Spectre kind of amps her while she's fighting the other shit in hell, and he goes to fighting Asmodeus. Like, he's multitasking while brawling with Asmodeus. He's putting the fucking hands on him while brawling with him. And he's eventually getting the upper hand on him even in hell. And he finds the true source of Asmodeus. There's actually characters influencing Asmodeus. That's how crazy the scaling is. And he's like, fuck that. He banishes it to the deepest pits of hell. He's like, you're not going to bother me anymore. You are annoying. And he folds it. He's like, you need to go to... You're going down, right? And I'm going to find your master. Fuck that. I don't abide by the rules of hell. We see that. Like, Spectre starts roaming through hell. He's like, I'm going to find this shit. And he runs upon the Hellhounds, right? And they're like, yo, you can't pass. There's rules to hell. You're breaking them right now, son. Like, you can't do that shit. Spectre just looks at them and he says, I don't abide by these rules. So either get the fuck out the way or I'm putting hands on you. Unfortunately for the dogs, they didn't have that dog in it. And when they pulled up on Spectre, he starts bowling the shit out of them. He beat the absolute shit out of the hound, bro. They stood no chance. He's like, bro, I don't care if it's your home. I'm in your hood now, so it's my hood. We then see that at this point, he just starts passively negging hell, right? And he negged it up to the throne of Shaken. That's how strong he is just walking around. Spectre's got the sauce, bro. Jim Corrigan's Spectre is him. And we see him eventually find the demon who powered and controlled Asmodeus while in hell and on the turf, right? And he's like, yo, you think you're him, right? Like, you think you're cool for getting Asmodeus to do all this shit? Nah, you gotta get the hands. And he beats the shit out of him. He warps him. And he bolos Asmodeus' master, who simply could not stop Spectre from getting in his bag. Like, he had no answer for him. Spectre was just too much. Then we proceed into another wild boss battle, right? Like I said, all Spectre knows in this run is the trenches. And by the way, shout out to everyone who's watching this whole video in its entirety. This is pretty much going to be movie length, but like I said, this story's full of Goon moments. It's a movie length Goon feature film. It's crazy. I might have to add it to the Goon cinematic universe as well. Now, Naran pulling up kind of demonstrates in this run how dangerous he is. He explains he's a former angel and that essentially he is one who makes a bunch of promises, right? But these promises are like top tier. For example, he could kill any need for Spectre to be bound, right? Or at least he could promise Spectre that. And he was actually able to corrupt the Spectre force, and he got it out the way, right? And we see, kind of in an exchange / confrontation with Madam, Naran straight up say, yo, like real shit, Spectre was someone like I didn't want to smoke. Like, Spectre's a fucking problem. So, I got him out the way. Did some underhanded shit. I did what I had to do to get the bag. Low-key, shout out to Naran for getting the bag. We even see the prince, basically like the representative of the power of God, the student that Spectre beat up. He's even reacting to the presence of Naran. He's like, man, some shit's going down. And we see Corrigan confront Spectre by himself, or Michael by himself. He's like, Michael, real shit. Spectre got snatched. He might be up to some hood rat shit right now because of what's going on. Like, I need him back. Won't you intervene? Like, won't God intervene to get me Spectre? Michael explains to him basically that everything happens for a reason. Everything's a part of a plan. Even if he doesn't think it's part of a plan, it for sure is. Like, he's a monster. And so because of this, like, there's no doubting what's going on. Like, God's got it. That's basically what he says. He's like, God's in his bag. Don't worry about it. Like, you're going to figure this shit out, Jim. And so Jim at that point is like, ah, shit, whatever. Well, I guess I got to see if I can just get some help to get my shit back. Because right now, the situation's absolutely crazy. And so we see, so Jim at this point proves he's him, right? Jim is him. Bars. Comment that down below. Jim is him. Now, Jim Corrigan's soul goes down with Madam to hell, right? He's like, yo, I need to get my shit back. And these demons from hell were summoned by Xanadu and by Naran, right? Jim doesn't care. He's like, dude, fuck the rap shit. I'm getting Spectre back. And he starts brawling with them and putting them down. That's right. Big Jim is pulling up by himself. He doesn't care. It's time to get the bag. We then see Jim Corrigan approach Spectre, right? He's like, real shit. Real hip-hop. I know there's a Spectre, like something controlling the Spectre. I know there's a spirit in there. It's really whatever. Like, I'm pulling up to see what's going down. He accesses Spectre. The battle gets wild, right? Like, the shit he has to do to get Spectre back is crazy. The scene is chaos, but he does that shit. And he runs down on the spirit inside the Spectre, fucks it up, and throws it out. Just dispels it. And at that point, Unbound Limbo, or Unbound Spectre, is kind of confronted by Michael. And his sword appears. And it basically says, look, you currently are supposed to be bound to Jim. So either accept the binding or be bound to Limbo. By the way, pretty dope to learn Limbo could apparently hold Unbound Spectre. But anyways, obviously Spectre obliges to fulfill its role and binds back with Jim. And it is noted at this point, and I kind of pointed it out to you guys, that they mentioned, Naran straight up corrupted the Spectre force. Like, even though I got it back, some shit might be iffy, so we really got to keep an eye on that. For Naran to even have the power and capability to do that is absurd, but still, you ain't stealing Jim's shit. He got his shit back. We then see Spectre begin one of the craziest sequences of boss battles. Smash the like button if you are a fan of the character I'm about to bring up, right? We see Spectre have to deal with beings coming from the dream plane, right? And he starts battling brother Jonathan. And eventually, when he's battling this battle, it transcends to the icon plane. And that's when he runs into the infamous Uncle Sam, right? And Uncle Sam gets into a massive brawl with Spectre. He's like, Spectre, I know you think you do all this shit, but real talk, I'm the collective will of the people. So you tell me this. Isn't that what makes a god in the first place? The collective will and idea and prayers of a person? And we see, oh shit, like, the icon plane is broken. It's also stated outright that Spectre's only part icon in terms of his form. He's not full icon, and that the icon, like, Uncle Sam was able to just pull up on him, and he actually beat the fuck out of Spectre, right? Like, just punished him, sent him back down. It was terrible. That boy Spectre got mauled. We didn't see him go on his journey for retribution and bounce back, right? Because the boy got humbled, right? Every goon gets humbled every once in a while, okay? It's natural order. Now, we see Spectre go on this journey to learn more about the icon plane, and he finds out that Uncle Sam comes from the icon plane. That's a plane outside of God's will. As in, at the very least, it's outside of the entirety of the Judeo-Christian mythos aspect of presence within DC. Like, it's completely out of that range. And we see a bunch of flashbacks and basically run through of the icon plane for Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam being the idea of America, freedom, all this shit. So he's OD. And he's birthed things such as the Minutemen legend that became iconic as well. Brother Jonathan, who is pretty much like the OG incarnation on Earth, had a Spectre type rule. It might mean he still fell under presence, in my opinion, in terms of the Christian side, but he essentially had that kind of aspect as an icon. And then we see the strongest form of Brother Jonathan is Uncle Sam. He's the iconic idea of America. He's the GOAT. He's essentially the idea of freedom. You don't fuck with Uncle Sam, okay? Uncle Sam is the icon in his truest power. Is absolutely OD. And what I think is absurd is, like, politics are high outer versal. DC went out of their way to make it high outer versal. And we are let known that agents of the icon plane can kill on the dream plane. National interest is actually an aspect of Uncle Sam. And that's what he deems himself. And he can, like, pull off wild shit here on the dream plane. And we see the entity of national interest is actually made up of the stuff that makes dreams. So dream manipulation can't affect him. He's, like, fundamentally above dreams. And this is when we see Jim Corrigan / Spectre reveal one of the most broken moments he's had so far. He can see objective reality. Basically, Spectre, when he needs to, can obtain the eyes of God himself when he has to. We then see him beef with an entity on the dream plane, right? And this is how fast Spectre is. He blitzed him before he could pull the trigger. Like, he's fast as shit. And he's like, bro, you're not pulling the trigger. I'm a monster. And this one is, we, like, basically realize how broken the people Spectre's beefing with are. Like, idea plane level ballers, the dudes that come from there, like national interest, they have to be erased simultaneously as ideas and as physical manifestations. It's not just as simple as beating them. There's multiple layers to destroying them. So what's that mean? Basically got to do both at the same time. Essentially impossible. However, Spectre's like, damn that, I can make a play. That's when we see Spectre merge beings on the physical and dream plane so fast that he's able to outright destroy national interest beings. Like, this is crazy. He realizes at this point, too, that it's not just the murder of people he has to defend, right? Spectre's purpose, how Spectre gets down, it's on a whole different level. Like, Spectre just doesn't defend the murdered people. He defends the murdered ideas. He's got to prevent that. He is justice on even a conceptual level. We're getting into one of the craziest beefs in this story as we see him beginning the war for essentially American soul, right? Like, Spectre is seeking the American talisman as the war for the idea of the American dream truly begins. And this is insane because, like, the idea plane, that gang coming from there is kind of beefing with Spectre at this point, but they don't know how to get rid of them. They outright admit, they're like, yo, real shit, Spectre, we're not quite sure how to get rid of him. Like, we don't know what's going on with him. We don't know if we can beat him. He's OD. Like, it's a unique situation. And this is when we see Spectre get put through an absolutely insane gauntlet of conceptual ideas that either haunt or plague America in some form or fashion. Who was first up in this brawl? Glad you fucking asked. Spectre, my boy Spectre, had to fight the accumulation of all women's rage ever in American history. And you know that bitches be tripping. So, for him to have beef with a conceptual representation of female anger or annoyance or rage throughout any time from 1992 run to before that in American history, that's a lot. That's a lot of angry bitches. And he had to brawl with that, right? And when he's getting into it with her, she's talking crazy. She's like, yo, real shit, you want to know something, Spectre? Men smoke cigars because cigars look like penises. They want to pretend to smoke penises even though they don't want to admit it. And at this point, this level of trash talk has Spectre a little confused. He's like, bro, I don't like know this bitch. I don't know why she's wilding like this, but he is not happy with it. So he's like, real shit, I'm gonna put hands on this bitch. And Spectre gets really pissed off when he's like getting into an exchange with her, right? Because he's like, look, I get it, you're pissed, but I don't have time for this shit. You're talking crazy. And he starts brawling with her. And we find out, and we see that our boy, our king, Spectre, scales above the concept of angry women from America. Karen got her ass beat by Spectre. The boy, Spectre, managed to put down the embodiment of women's rage. That's right. Absolutely insane, but Spectre got that done. Now, I will give you full transparency. We are stumbling upon the arc in which cancellation was a possibility for Spectre. But this shit dropped in 92, so no one cared. But you're about to see a wild story. Like, this is about to get crazy. Now, Spectre stumbles one night upon a mob surrounding this gay couple, right? At a party. One of the gay dudes gets beat up, right? Gets mauled. Like, by one of these wild boys. And Spectre sees that shit and he's like, yo, for your brutality, for attacking, you gotta get folded. Folds him, right? As Spectre should. But then he doesn't get all of the gang, right? And so the lover of the dude is like, yo, they were trying to stop me from getting to my lover, you should burn them too. And he's like, I burned the dudes that committed the brutality. And he's like, oh, I get it. It's because we're gay. And then Spectre just looks at him and doesn't say anything. He definitely failed the vibe check on not getting canceled, right? But he's also confused. He just doesn't know what his stance is supposed to be on gay people, right? So he pulls up to heaven, literally instantly flies to heaven. Michael's like, Spectre, please tell me you're not here to fight again. Like, I'm sick of us just randomly beefing. And Spectre's like, no, chill. I'm here to ask a question, though. And he's like, alright, Spectre, what do you need that's so urgent? And he says, are gay people in heaven? Is gay cool there? Like, do we do gay stuff? Like, what's up? What's the vibes? And Michael's like, you flew up here to ask that? He was like, yeah, because I don't know. And Michael explains to him, he's like, dude, heaven as a concept is so massively beyond human concepts and ideas like being gay or being straight that they don't matter here. So no, being gay or straight is not a thing in heaven. It's fine. Like, no, we don't have beef with gay people. Like, because these people Spectre keeps folding, they keep saying God told him to kill gays. And he's like, yo, y'all are tripping. I swear he did not put that memo out. So he went and asked Michael and he got his confirmation. So he's like, alright, cool. At this point, Spectre has saved his image, right? He's pure pro, like, LGBT at this point. He's like, alright, dog, gay people are cool, we're pulling up. He finds out his next op is the concept of all the gay hate ever in America. Basically, Alabama hard carries against Spectre. This fight turns out to be a brawl, right? But Spectre's like, look, gay people are cool and you're tripping. And the fact that you think you can, like, quote God and act like he told you to do all this shit, it's not cool. And the fact that you, like, think you can just be powered by that and beat me, crazy. He bolos the concept of gay haters, right? What an epic win. What an epic clash. Just a crazy fucking part to this story. Smash the like button if you haven't already. Although I'm sure you have if you made it this far. Now, this is when we see Phantom Stranger encounters Spectre, right? And he kind of lets him know. He's like, bro, you're powerful. Like, I know you're going to see Guy and stuff, but just to let you know, too, like, bro, you could have one-shot, like, every crisis event in comics up to this point. Like, that's how broken you are. Like, I need you to know that, bro. Like, you're OD. Just don't take that for granted. We also see Spectre upon encountering Gaia. He's above her. Like, he's straight up, like, stronger than her. It's like she acknowledges that. And that would include scaling above her and all her help, which would also include the Green. That's pretty nutty to think about, but like I said, they show Spectre a lot of love in this run. We also see Gaia refer to Alan Scott as the greatest of heroes. To all of my fans of Alan Scott, all 4 of you out there, smash the fucking like button. Comment down below. How lit is that they did that? And we see she's being haunted by, like, the most metaphorical evil shit. And it's killing her. And he goes on to cure her of it, right? Spectre's the GOAT. He makes a play. He's a medical genius. Cures her. And she's like, yo, real shit, I fuck with you, Spectre. Like, you're mad cool, bro. I know you got a rep being the, like, God's wrath and stuff, but you're dope. He's like, appreciate you. And this is when we see Spectre to return to his American talisman / American dream battle, right? And he runs into a Native American. Now, this Native American calls him potentially the whitest man to ever live. This is a bold accusation. I had to bring it up. We don't know if he ever beat those allegations, but it was pretty nutty to see, as obviously this will be one thing he's dealing with as well moving forward. We then see Spectre get stabbed by the Spear of Destiny, amped by the metaphorical hate within America. Like I said, the spear was kind of forged, dipped in the blood of Jesus, and already had hate, so it's stupidly broken. And metaphor, like, because it was used to kill Jesus or whatever, like, amping it with the metaphorical hate or whatnot, like, it's OD. Spectre eats it, just takes that. And he was already weakened when he was stabbed. And he kept on fighting. Bro is still swinging. I'm not even going to lie to you guys. Like, Spectre got the shit stabbed out of his stuff. Like, he got hit multiple times by this spear. It was bad. Like, and the crazy thing, too, that I kind of want to bring up is Spectre battling this and, like, surviving the spear and whatnot. It's so crazy because we've seen prior versions just outright get folded by this. Like, they had no hope, like, against the spear. And he takes the hits and is still able to survive. Now, this is when we see, personally, one of my favorite characters. When we see the American Patriot pull up. That's right. Not every character is evil from the Conceptual America. Patriot's a vibe, everyone. Like, he's literally the manifestation of America's hopes and dreams. As long as they dream he exists, he's dope. Like, you gotta love him. And that's when we see Spectre run the ones with American Scream. American Scream being the darkness in the heart of America. Every dark American thought, act, anything, words, up to 1992, manifested at this level. And despite being American himself, he's American as fuck, Jim Corrigan is, and having some darkness in him and in Spectre, Jim and Spectre managed to actually cast out American Scream from possessing him. This is high outer resistance, obviously, with this icon level shit, and it's just crazy that he resisted that, despite all the odds against him. We see that this battle now has to take place on the plane of iconic ideas, i.e. the heart of America. It can't just be like a physical battle. It's got to happen on multiple layers of existence. And we see Spectre go to war against American Scream. Now, shout out to Gang, Spectre won against American Scream. His belief was too strong even for an icon level character. He managed to cast out American Scream and clutch the W. We see our boy Patriot spin back as well, and it's stated that as long as Americans hope and dream and have the possibility of that, we see that Patriot's, like, first of all, he's always going to be there. Like, pretty much as long as America's alive, he's going to be there. So it's dope. It's a super dope ally for Spectre to have. Like, he's making friends in the trenches. And we see him moves on to Batman fighting Joker. And he pulls up on Joker immediately. He was just going to end him. It's just going to fucking end him, right? And Batman saves Joker with semantics. And this gives... By the way, that was so stupid. Like, Batman could have just let him die, right? Let Spectre take him. But despite recent events, Corrigan being weakened, battling constantly for the possession of Spectre, Corrigan beat the shit out of Joker when Joker tried to take possession of him, right? And he takes Spectre back. He's like, cool prank, Joker, but fuck you. You're not taking the body of Spectre. I gotcha. And he beats him up and casts him out, right? And we see he actually can't judge Joker because apparently, according to Spectre, Joker literally doesn't know good from evil. He just does shit. That man's literally just out here violent. He does not know good from evil. So it was pretty crazy to see that go down like that. And then we arrive at another boss battle, right? We see Spectre fight Hell Lord Shaden, who scaled above Asmodeus, right? He pulls up and he's fucking people up. I think even Jay Garrick, right? He's fucking him up too. Spectre's like, nope, I'm not gonna let that fly. He actually pulls up on him and seals him away. That's big Spectre. Don't let him do the drive-by. You're gonna get folded. We then see Spectre get into some random shit. First of all, we see he was essentially responsible for Black Mr. Terrific. The actions of Spectre is what caused him to be who he is, which was pretty interesting to see. On top of this, that boy Spectre started his own cop show. I don't know why, but bro decided to be a fucking cop show on some Steven Seagal shit. I mean, it is what it is. Spectre's a beast. Maybe he's trying to get the bag. I don't know. But he actually did that. I thought it was hilarious. But that was just like a random bit in the comic that he went through. Now, we see Spectre starts going through a little bit of a crisis. Right? He's weakening because Jim's confused. Jim's not quite sure what's going on, how to control himself, what's going on. And so Spectre and him, they go to heaven. Instantly travel to heaven. They gotta seek guidance. He's going through some shit. He's been through a lot, man. Jim Corrigan's been through a lot. And you're gonna see towards the end of the comic how tragic his life was leading up to this. But when he gets to heaven, we see him start to search for God. As heaven is completely empty and God's missing. So Spectre's like, okay, what the fuck? I should not be able to come through here. So he's like, I'm going to Limbo. Pulls up on Limbo, and he sees Deadman. He's like, Deadman, have you seen God? And Deadman's like, no, bro, I'm fucking smoking a blunt in Limbo. Like, what are you talking about? And his attitude and his sassiness, I guess, just wasn't cutting it for Spectre, because Spectre started fucking him up. And he was like, yo, chill, it's a prank, bro. I don't know what's going on. Like, please, like, don't kill me just because you're having a bad day. Spectre was like, all right, pussy, well, don't be a smartass then. We then see him pull up on Hell, right? He casually broke down the innermost gate of Hell. He was like, fuck this, I'm finding God. I'm finding out what's going on. And he sees Hell Lords within, fallen angels and such. And he's like, yo, real shit, I don't give a fuck what y'all got going on. I have to find God. And you guys are wilding right now. Like, where is he? And the Hell Lord even compared them to Lucifer again, which is pretty crazy. Spectre doesn't ignore it. He's just like, yo, where's God? And all the demons try to descend upon Spectre at that point, right? They try to jump him. He one-shots them all. He's like, fuck you guys. I'm having a terrible day. I can't find God. You gotta get out of my way. And they all get boloed. Just another body to add to Spectre's resume. New gods are also revealed to be an aspect of the presence as Spectre goes on to search for them there, right? And he also goes on to search the source of all things. There's a living land where basically beings who are ideas, they self-realized. Spectre brawled with Shango, one of their gods, and held his own. So it's kind of a weird plane of existence that seems to be outside of the religious pantheons. But he visited there too, couldn't really find it. So he's like, fuck, I gotta visit the new gods, old gods, all that. He pulls up on Zeus, right? And we see Zeus is OD. Like, he's casually making and unmaking realities while he's just sitting in his throne. And when Spectre pulls up, Zeus throws a bolt at him, like one of his strong-ass bolts. Spectre just catches that shit. He's like, what's up, bitch? You trying to throw stuff at me? Like, bro, we can scrap, but I'm here with questions. Like, I'm not really, like, here to brawl with you or whatever. And we see at this point in the cosmology, like, Darkseid had created Olympus, essentially, through his actions and whatnot. And we see Ares pop up. And Ares is kind of talking greasy, you know? And Spectre looks at him. He just looks at him. He goes, look, real shit. Like, I need to tell you this. I can't wait. And trust me, this day's coming. There's going to be a day when you have to burn for what you've done. And I can't wait to come do that shit myself, because I'm going to fuck you up. And all the guys were like, ooh, like, Spectre means that shit. So, yeah, he was not scared. And it was kind of funny. We see him go on to have an exchange with Darkseid. And he didn't want to tell Darkseid what's going on, because Darkseid inherently can't process people are stronger than him. So, like, he will go on to try to become God, because he thinks that's what he is. So, for him to know God's missing would be extremely problematic. So, Spectre's like, you know, I'm not even going to tell this motherfucker. I'm going to keep it pushing. But yeah, it was kind of funny seeing him talk to Darkseid, because Darkseid is so literally cosmically ignorant. Because he couldn't understand the source and like how everything works and how the source is like an instrument of God, he gets to merge with it, right? But he does not like being God. He's like a pseudo-God at this point. He sees all the craziness throughout creation for what it really is, understanding free will, all this stuff. He's like, dude, all that shit's annoying. The fact that God just lets people cook is ridiculous. They should not be allowed to do so. The world would be perfect if things were in perfect order. So he doesn't even want to be like a fake God, right? So he dispels that power. He demerges from the source and actually survives that. Um, and we see it's kind of ironic because Spectre is technically a walking contradiction. The reason because of this, and kind of looking into what makes Spectre himself, is he was spawned from injustice to fight injustice. So like he was made from what he's supposed to destroy. It's kind of interesting to look at it. And that's when we get into a very emotional part for those that like really read through the story. Smash the like button if you haven't gotten there already. We're going to realize what's been bugging Jim Corrigan so long. Why hasn't Jim earned that shot at heaven? It's because there's so much turmoil inside of him. Spectre realizes it's a lot of shit going on internally, so he helps him look back at what caused this. Like, what's the true root of Jim's heart burning like that, right? We saw Jim grow up with this young boy, and it was his friend, right? And this boy was the help to the family. Jim's dad was a preacher. Jim walked in and accidentally saw his dad forcing himself on the help. He forced himself on it, right? Jim's friend saw this as well. And when they saw this, his friend ran away. When he ran away, he drowned in the woods. Just ashamed of everything he saw and what he had realized, right? And because of this, and because of his dad's occupation, Spectre and Jim find out that Jim hated God for the death of his friend Wraith. He feels like it was God's fault. So now, Jim realizes why there's so much turmoil inside of him. It's what he grew up in. It's the conditions he saw as a kid that has just put this black hole in his chest, right? He just can't get over that shit. He just can't. And then we see Spectre's got wild shit to deal with. On top of this self-actualization, God's gone crazy. He's gone fucking mad, right? The Presence has gone mad. Spectre sees that boy Michael get fucking stabbed, and he's getting chewed on by Presence, right? Keep in mind, even though like this is Presence or whatever, and he's wild, something's wrong, Spectre should be scared, right? Like, he's just an aspect of his power, but he's not. Spectre is a monster. Like, he's a menace. He's a goon. So he tries to swing on God. And Presence easily puts him down with a finger. He's like, what are you doing? You're dumb. And he's like, bro, I didn't do all this shit just for you to consume your creation. Like, what you're doing to existence, they have the right to their own existence. And he's like, dude, I made everything. Who are you to tell me how to run what is me? I am everything. And that's when we see Spectre get mind hacked by the Presence, right? That's what he sees that makes it insane. Now, we realize while he's going through all this, right, and he's talking to Presence, he basically gets mind hacked into seeing, like, the bigger picture, right? Like, he needs to forgive himself and everything that's happened to him. His dad was going through a lot of shit. He was a terrible person. He went through a lot of shit, but he's like, look, the world can forge some crazy things. You were flawed, maybe not as evil as I thought you were. You were flawed and you were in pain, so I forgive you and myself, right? And that's when we see this kind of crisis with Presence come to an end as we see Spectre kind of confront Presence and go like, yeah, I get it. You got the same problem too and stuff. Like, I gotta move on. You gotta do your thing, I gotta do my thing. And it seems at this point that Spectre and Jim Corrigan have finally discovered what it takes to realize their mission, right? And that gives him a chance to lay to rest finally. So, Corrigan finally gets his shot at the afterlife. And he has a small private party to celebrate him. And it was so dope to see because we saw all the characters who ever helped show up. We saw the boy Patriot. We saw Mr. Terrific. We saw Gaia. Gaia had sent her people to represent her. We see Batman. We see the Justice League. We see the Stranger. Everybody that saw and witnessed what Jim Corrigan went through. The plays he made in the trenches. There was so much love and respect for him. It was beautiful to see as he thanked them all for showing him love. And he finally got to go to heaven. And the run ends with Corrigan finally getting to rest. As his headstone says, James Corrigan, servant of God. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching this Goon Run story. One of the most epic stories ever. I'm glad I used it as a debut. The cover, I know, is long as shit. I don't know if every story will be that long because this was over 60 issues. But I had so much fun recording it, even though I've done content on it before. It's a classic. That's a 10 out of 10. It's as funny as it gets, as much Goon moments as you want, but it also has some emotional twists and amazing storytelling in it. And I hope you guys truly enjoyed this. Anyways, it's been your boy Jobbers and Goons. Shout out to all the love and support. I love you all as well, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.